Digital audio players, eh? Who needs them? In this day and age, most of you use your mobile phones as your primary music source, but there are some of us, admittedly usually older, less cool audiophiles, who really value having a dedicated audio device that's built solely to maximize sound quality. And this is why I love my FIO M11 Plus. This is the ESS version. I've had it for over a year. I don't take it everywhere with me because it is big and chunky and a lot to carry around. But if I'm chilling with some music at home, this is what I'll turn to. But wouldn't it be great to have a small DAP that we can take with us anywhere without feeling that we're lugging another brick around? And this is where today's product comes in. So this is the Hidizs, I think I've pronounced that correctly, Hidizs AP80 Pro X. Thank you to Hidizs for sending it to me for evaluation. Usual disclaimers apply, although they've sent it to me for free. They've not had any input into the video, so these are my honest thoughts. But anyway, this is an update to Hidizs' long-running AP80 series. So first of all, I think it was just the AP80. Then a few years ago, we got the AP80 Pro, and this is the AP80 Pro X. Now, I've not owned or used the previous versions of this, so it's new to me. But in terms of what's changed, the main thing is really the internals. It apparently looks identical to the previous version. But the key thing that's changed is that this now features an upgraded DAC. Oh, hang on, I'm going to check my notes. It's an ESS9219C DAC, which apparently adds the capability for MQA, unfolding or whatever it's called, if you care about that. I certainly don't. One thing it loses though is that apparently the new chipset doesn't support a radio function, which the previous version had, so some of you might miss that. Other than that, the design and build is identical to the previous version, and as you can see, it's a very dinky little player. It easily fits in my not very big hands. It feels rugged and well made, so we've got an aluminium frame with glass front and back, factory applied screen protectors, which is really nice. On the bottom of the unit we have a USB-C input, and two wired audio outputs, a 2.5mm balanced output, which I know is not as good as the 4.4mm, but it's there. And then we've got a single-ended output 3.5mm, and the important thing to note is this is not a hugely powerful player, so the output from the 3.5mm jack I think is about 72 milliwatts, and it's just under double from the balanced output. So this isn't designed to drive something like the Hi-Fi Man Sundaras or the HD650s. This is what you'd use to drive your high quality IEMs, and it'll have no difficulty doing that. The display is a nice 2.45-inch touchscreen, and it's really responsive and nice and bright, so you'll have no trouble seeing it even out and about in sunlight. On the side of the unit we've got some playback controls, which are quite difficult to distinguish from one another, but the volume knob feels nice and rugged. It's got a nice action with a little bit of clickiness to it. It's not too easy to accidentally ramp up the volume accidentally, and in fact you can limit how high the volume goes in software, and I definitely advise you do that to avoid blowing your eardrums out with sensitive IEMs. There is also a low gain and a high gain mode, and I never felt the need to put it in anything other than low gain mode when listening to IEMs. In terms of the battery, as you might expect from such a small unit, it's not stellar. Hidizs reckons you'll get about 8 hours from the balanced output, 11 hours from the single-ended output, and I think that's right. The thing about the battery that did impress me though is that the standby time is really good. I left it in a drawer for 2 or 3 days between listens, and it had dropped very, very little. Now the main thing I don't like about the build quality is the micro SD slot. It's an open slot, there's no door to cover it or anything, and unless you've got long fingernails, which I haven't because I'm a surgeon, or you've got some kind of special tool like a SIM ejector tool, it's quite hard to get the card in and out. That's really a minor gripe. On the whole, this feels like a really solid premium compact unit. Coming on to the software, it's important to note that this doesn't run Android, so you won't be able to run your streaming services from the Google Play Store because it ain't Android. It has its own software, which I believe is based on the Hidizs OS. It'll take a few minutes to get used to all the various interface elements, but essentially all this does is play offline music, play via Bluetooth, or act as a wired DAC. So you don't need complex software. The software experience is fairly nippy on this chipset, so I didn't really have too many lags even after I'd loaded my 17,000 MP3 library onto a micro SD card. Obviously it took a good few minutes to scan all that in, but once it had done that, I could navigate around my music collection quite well. There were a few times where it seemed to freeze momentarily, but if you're just patient, it kind of comes back to life, and certainly it's a lot smoother than something like the old FIO M3K, for example. You can sort your music by album, playlist, artist. You can create playlists on the go. All in all, it's a combination of simplicity as well as having a decent degree of depth for more advanced users. The thing that's most impressive in terms of the software is the sheer amount of customization of the sound that you can do. So as well as the basic 5-band graphic equalizer, there's also what Hidizs calls MSEB, which I think is also something found on Hidizs players. And essentially it's a combination of a digital signal processing unit along with some kind of parametric EQ. And it allows you to tweak the sound quite subtly. You'll have hours of fun playing around with this and finding a sound that suits you. Now, for the purpose of the review, I of course didn't fiddle with any of that. I just left it in stock configuration because, let's face it, most people buying this won't want to spend hours fiddling with the sound settings and will just want to know that it sounds good out of the box. But you know, just bear in mind that you can EQ this thing really well. So this thing acts as both a Bluetooth receiver and a transmitter. So you can listen to music from this on your Bluetooth headphones, or you can send music to it from your phone. If it's an iPhone, it'll be via AAC or SBC, which are the only two codecs that the iPhone supports via Bluetooth. And if it's Android, of course, you get LDAC support. Now the Bluetooth standard it uses is 4.2 rather than newer 5.1 or 2. So I found, for example, that the range wasn't very good and the power consumption is a bit higher. But overall, it's nice functionality to have, particularly as you can't run your streaming apps directly on this. You can, of course, play Tidal on your phone and stream it to this via Bluetooth like you would via the BTR5 or BTR7 from FIO. You can also use it as a USB DAC, and it works really well, and if you use something like UAPP you'll get lossless audio from it. Interestingly, I couldn't get it to work with my iPhone 14 Pro Max. It said when I hooked it up via the Lightning to USB-C cable that it uses too much power. So that's a bit of a shame. However, it works really well with my Mac. And when you've got it in wired DAC mode, you will of course get lossless audio because this thing supports pretty much every audio codec that you can chuck at it. So yeah, as well as your offline music, you've got those options for getting music off your phone if streaming services are your thing. So let's get on to the most important bit, which of course is the sound quality. And I can sum it up by saying probably slightly bright neutral. So what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, I mean that the mid-range is absolutely stunningly neutral, clear, amazingly detailed for such a reasonably priced player, and with very good technicality. So the timbre of both vocals and instruments is spot on. There's a decent amount of detail, there's a decent amount of instrument separation, imaging is very good, and the soundstage obviously depends more on the headphones you're using, but this will not compress it artificially. Some people might find it a little bit bass light. I like the bass from it. I think it's very agile and well articulated, and you get a really lovely propulsive sense of rhythm, but it's not a warm sounding player, and that might be an issue if you pair it with some very lean headphones such as the Etymotic ER4P, for example. If you do that, then you certainly will feel that it's quite a bass light experience. But paired with something like my absolute favourites, the Sennheiser IE600s, which has got a really fantastic sub bass, that's a really fantastic combo. As far as the treble goes, it's really nicely extended and doesn't sound particularly artificial. It's certainly not sibilant. However, I think the treble doesn't sound quite as natural as the mid-range, and you can certainly hear that with, you know, cymbals and hi-hats. There's just that slight metallic zing Perhaps you'd call it a glare. I've never really understood what that word means, but maybe that's it. Doesn't sound as natural as mid-range. But overall, I think it sounds really good. Now, does it sound as good as my FiiO M11 ESS? Remember, they both run dual ESS chips. The answer is, of course, no, because packed into that M11 hefty chassis is plenty of audio circuitry, a much better power supply, a dedicated amplification stage. It's THX1 in here. And, you know, of course, these two are not going to sound as good. However, when you're out and about, you'll really struggle to tell the difference. Of course, this can drive much more demanding headphones, but you're not going to be wearing those out and about. I'm not going to be taking my Sundaras to local Starbucks. They won't fit in my bag. So if you're listening on IEMs, I think you'll really enjoy the sound of these. And it really brings us on to who this product is for. And at sub £200, $200, it's currently retailing for about £180. This is a really good buy, because not only have you got the DAP functionality with offline music, so you can load up your SD cards with lossless or lossy music, whatever you fancy. You've also got, like the FiiO BTR5, BTR7, Bluetooth capabilities, although it's not quite as capable as those units in terms of Bluetooth. And you've got the wired DAC option, all wrapped up in a very premium looking and feeling package with a nice responsive bit of software and a lovely touchscreen. What's not to like? Minor criticisms aside, I think this is an ideal travel DAP. It's so small and light, you don't feel like you're carrying an extra brick around with you. And if you take this and some wired headphones, then you are set free from the distractions that listening to music on your phone might provide. So overall, I really like this product, and I'm more than happy to award it the Audio Fixation Silver Award. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you still have place in your life for a DAP? Go on, you know you have, especially when it's as small and cute and dinky as this. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. It's always great to hear from you, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.